Armando Quezada, how are you doing?
What's good? Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
I'm happy to have you here. I know you're not the number one in this situation. Abraham Romero was the first, but all things considered, I've always wanted you to be number one.
Don't worry. I'm used to being number 2 and number 3. All right. It's not a problem.
I'm sorry. Well, just take that as an apology. But it's good to have you here, man. What's new? How are you doing?
Doing well. Right now, I'm kind of focused on the off season. Unfortunately, this season, I wasn't able to officially sign for a team, but I was on trial with several teams here towards the end of the year. I was able to join a team here in Irvine. It was a great opportunity for me to stay in team training. And now my full focus is coming into February and March to find an opportunity to join a team. If there's a trial, I want to be 100% ready physically, mentally, and take the most of my opportunities. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Is it tough when you don't have that continuity of kind of being around a team?
Yes, absolutely. I would say this last season was probably the toughest. Not mentally, but just I think of it logistically. Like, how can I get consistent training now? Because now it's a battle of reaching out to friends or reaching out to you, but you were with LAFC, so it's going to be difficult for you to take the time there. So it was just kind of taking training where I could. Focusing on my physical well-being, I guess, right? If that sense, going to the gym, taking care of my fitness and all that, but it's not the same. It's definitely very difficult. Many of us who have been in the USL, NISA, League One go through that at times where we're not sure where our next contract is going to be, and getting training and preparing for the opportunity can be logistically difficult. And especially as a goalkeeper, you need somebody to be lacing shots to you, getting real reps. So yeah, it was difficult, but I figured it out. I feel great right now. Mentally and physically, I feel the best I've ever had in my career. And now I'm moving forward. That's great. That's where I'm at.
It's definitely tough because every season, whether you're in college, right, your freshman year, you're okay, you know what I learned from that year? Year two's coming, so you have the spring season or the winter, then the spring season. Then you have the summer to get ready for the season. So you always have something to look forward to. So I know it's definitely tough to not, I guess, know where the next opportunity is coming from. And then now the season came and went, and no opportunity did come. So I know if there's anybody with the mental fortitude to push through that stuff, it's you.
Yeah, at this point in my career, I'm very, I would say, at peace with where I'm at with my career. I don't feel like I'm forcing something or I need to prove anything to anybody. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. If I wasn't happy and I wasn't, like I said, I didn't want to train or I don't want to prepare for this opportunity, then I know I'm done. I haven't considered retirement at any point. I know that as soon as that starts to creep in my mind and stuff, it'll probably be time to let it go. But I'm having too much fun this last, being able to join this team and kind of be around the guys and all that just really reminded me that this is what's meant for me. I'm happy and I will continue to pursue it.
That's awesome, man. Well, everyone who's watching on YouTube or listening, they know you from Pro GK. They know you from day one. We're doing video shoots at City Hall in Arcadia.
Yeah.
You're diving on.
I was the face of Pro GK for 5 minutes. But I'll take it.
They knew me as the guy. I was wearing like the stupidest things, a dumb hat, designer glasses for training. But yeah, you were the guy, and it definitely had there was ups and downs. I think for me as a coach, it was, and obviously a content creator at the time.
Right.
My goal was, you want to get better, you want to train Armando, but I need to get the shots that I want. And we'll get into kind of how we navigated through that and kind of how we found our way into the content that people see today.
I would say, all jokes aside, Pro GK was really the beginning of what I see of my professional career. Looking back at it, I can see how much I've evolved as a goalkeeper from there, and I've kind of seen you evolve from there. And we both kind of pushed each other's in ways that we made each other uncomfortable in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Kind of calling each other out and brainstorming ideas of what drills are better and how can I translate this to the game. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that I feel we can talk about and how we got better together.
Yeah, let's get into it right away. I think one of the things that you told me that stuck with me from the drill perspective, one thing you said was, hey, man, once we get this shot, because I remember I had you do like 4 or 5 repetitions because you didn't land properly or there wasn't a good angle for slow-mo or whatever the social media algorithms were curating at the time. I was trying to kind of create chase. Yeah. And there was a time when you said, dude, once you get this shot, are we going to do this exercise again ever? And I said, honestly, I haven't thought that far ahead, but probably not. And that was the first moment where I said, damn, he's he's got something here. I'm really just trying to create content where once I got the shot, I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, I would say, but I would say this. I mean, to give you a little bit more perspective, at the time I was in college, I had just finished my senior season. I was in the transition of kind of finding my first professional contract. Didn't really have any opportunities. I would say zero. Nobody called, right? Which was a bit disappointing, but expected. Now that I look back at it, I was like, yeah, nobody's going to call you. I didn't have the most amazing college career. I didn't really have a great highlight tape. There was no reason for people to call. So now looking back at it, it makes a lot of sense. But at the time, I was trying to find a way to my first professional contract, and I knew I had to prepare for it, which was kind of training, right? So I reached out to you. I said, hey, I'm at Davis. I will drive down to Southern California on the weekends for a few days to get some training in. Let's try to make it worth our time. So that's where the frustration started at times, because I felt I was driving all the way down and we were starting to film and do these drills for social media and for the filming of the video and all that. So it got to a point where I didn't think I was improving. I was just,
it's robotic.
It was robotic. It was like, all right, we got that shot. We got that drill. Let's go on to the next. And it wasn't with bad intentions. I mean, we were trying to build something. We got some traction off the Pro GK page, but I think we both felt we suckered into what people were commenting and asking for, but we kind of, we fixed that eventually.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, with the Pro GK channel, maybe helping you in navigating through the pro game and as you got opportunities, vice versa. Again, and the second piece of advice that you gave me was, dude, these drills, one, they're not helping me, but also two, are they really helping you? And I said, I don't know. Right now, short term, I'm looking at the numbers. It's looking great. A lot of people are following. We're getting a lot of traction. It's amazing. But then you said, but also, Omar, think about it. When people are watching this content, it's your virtual resume. So our coach is watching this and saying, oh, that's for sure going to be the guy that we want to bring in. And again, whether it's realistic or not, I was like, I didn't play professionally, so virtual resume, whether we like it or not, in the world that we live in, that is a necessity.
It's everything.
It's everything. And you said, put something out there that if you were a coach for a club and you saw that, a top club, not just a local club. I work for local clubs. Nothing wrong with that. But again, you have 10 keepers inside the 18-yard box. It's not really taking the profession as seriously as I think I was trying to pursue. So I said, you're right. Let me start creating sessions that are a little bit more, and one thing you introduced me to was progressions. I never knew what a progression was. You were like, dude, the training, we're just straight diving right away. Can you get me in a position where if it's, working on handling, we're working on low balls, get me on my knees diving, then get me on my feet diving, and then we can start with the movements.
Right.
But it was all of that packed into one message, and it resonated with me, and I sat with it for a little bit, and come to the future now. I think 2 years ago, LAFC, they're starting a second team, the Las Vegas Lights. The head coach at Cal State LA, who was friends with some people in the organization, he put my name in the hat. They called me and said, hey, we've been watching some of your content on social media. It's impressive. It's very much to the standard that we have here. Would you like to come in for a trial? So I had never told that story, but I wanted to thank you because that was one of those where in the moment it hurt. It stung for a little bit, and I felt like it was an attack. But in reality, it was more like, dude, just don't get the instant gratification. Think about it.
And if you go back, I mean, I'm trying to take myself back to those moments. And it was the definition of constructive criticism, right? And you know me, I'm pretty blunt.
You are.
I'm going to try not to cuss today, but I was using a lot. I don't know. I was maybe a little too aggressive with the way I communicated my feelings with you. But it was because it was what I felt. I was trying to be honest. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you were trying to our goal was not to build a successful Instagram page or to get the following or any of the likes, right? Our goal was, for me personally, to achieve that first contract, to develop, to improve on some of the many weaknesses that I had. And for you, it was to develop your coaching philosophy. We talked about this all the time after training. Hey, I'm going to start to apply this and write these downs. And you would tell me, write it down and talk to me about all the note keeping that you're doing and building your resume and philosophy. So it was a process. It was months on end, weeks on end of just constant going back, looking at the film. What can we do? Let's take this out. Let's add this. Even though your communication during the videos, hey, maybe I can come in and be more specific or describe the drill. A lot of the stuff that now I feel you're applying to your professional life.
Yeah.
We were slowly, organically building that during that time.
I think one thing that I love about you is the bluntness. In the moment, I don't think I understood or really liked where it was coming from and how it sounded. But again, now I'm sitting back, 30 years old. I'm looking back at some of those tough conversations, and I really do appreciate you for that. So thank you for just not being so nice. The true friends are the ones that are going to tell you things you don't want to hear.
I called you out, bro.
You did. So that brings me to this, though, is that you're critical of your friends, obviously, because you see the best for them, but tailoring that to you now, do you feel like sometimes you're a little too self-critical throughout your career, and you sometimes beat yourself up for things that maybe you needed to give yourself a little bit of leeway on?
Opposite. So I feel I wasn't critical enough.
Really?
So now, at this point in my career right now, I'm constantly doing that. I have a life outside of football that I do a lot of business stuff on the side, and I've been able to kind of translate what I've learned with sport into the business side, and now have built this voice in my head that is always criticizing, always, you could do this, you could do that, you can do this. And it's really challenged me to build my schedule and my habits so I can almost answer back to that voice, right? Mm-hmm. And build this, like I said, the schedule and habits that are going to lead me to be successful. When I mean opposite is that at a young age, my ego was through the roof, right? I thought it was better than what I was. I wasn't critical enough. I wasn't looking back at my mistakes, and I wasn't correcting them, right? I was relying at a young age with my athleticism to make a lot of saves and kind of go through seasons at the youth level, thinking I was better than who I was. I was not improving. The performances that I was able to have in high school or in college were solely based on, I guess athletic ability, but I was not developing at the speed that I should have. And I feel now, looking back, if I was able to talk to myself and put myself in that moment, be like, you need to improve your distribution, your left, your right, handling, cutting off crosses. They just have to be better.
Yeah.
So I did not progress as quickly as I should have if I would have been a little bit more critical. I was too much of a fan and not a hater.
Yeah. I think that's the balance that people have to have at a young age. And I talked about it with Abraham. He was telling me that his dad was in his ear and saying, man, you are the best. You need to carry yourself like you're better than other people.
That's important.
Yeah, it is very important, but it's also, you can't just drop that on a young kid and not help them understand that there are layers to it. And, hey, you need to be critical at the same time as being arrogant. And when you have that fine balance, and I think with age we see it, but if you don't have that balance at the beginning, you can teeter to one side a little too much, and that could really mess up your career, but interrupt the proper progression that you need and maturity in that experience.
Your development. Yeah. You're not going to get better if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and be like, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that enough, then you're not going to progress. You're not going to develop. And during those years, those are important. Those are important development years. When 17, 18, 19, again, I thought I knew it all. So here I am now, right? So,
yeah.
Again, I kind of would have liked to be more critical at a younger age.
Well, let's talk about the younger days then. You just told me a quick story.
Yep.
About.
I don't think I've ever told you that, right?
No, you've never told me that. But from a young age, a lot of us, we have influences, whether we know it or not. It just kind of consumes us. And now that we look back on it, we say, wow, that consumption of that content or that consumption of those games really influenced the way that I played. So you grew up for a little bit in Mexico, and you said you played a little bit of basketball.
Yeah, so I was born here in LA at a younger age, maybe when I was in 3rd or 4th grade. My family and I, we moved out to Mexico for maybe 2 years. When I went out there, I started to pick up basketball, and it was something that I felt that I was good at a young age. I was much taller than a lot of the kids out there, so I did well. We did a lot of travel ball, and then eventually we moved back. Once we moved back, I started to realize that I was not as good at basketball as I thought I was. So I said at 12 or 13 years old, I said, maybe I can pick up a new sport. I don't know what really led me to feel that way. I saw that Chivas USA on the radio had just announced the team and that they were building academies. And I don't know. I wanted to play the sport. I wanted to be signed up for the team. I asked my mom, and she said, yeah, sure, let's try it. Without getting too far into the story, I'd never played soccer before. They brought me in. They saw that I didn't have experience, but they really needed a goalkeeper badly. So they put me on the B team. Said, hey, we have a game this weekend. Can you show up? Can you make it? I said, sure. Sure enough, the next day I went out, bought some cleats, some gloves. I had these like ugly like Reebok pants because I watched a lot of Mexican League at the time. Miguel Calero would wear pants and I'd wear a hat. I actually brought a hat to the game as well.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I showed up 10 minutes before the game. They said, where were you? I didn't know there was I didn't know any of like you need to warm up an hour before the game. I just showed up 10 minutes before. They threw me in the goal. And sure enough, 10 minutes into the game, I got my first and only red card of my career. There was a ball bouncing over the top coming into the 18. I kind of panicked a little bit, came off my line outside of the 18 and just grabbed the ball. Like it was just something very stupid. Like it just, if you're a parent outside and you're looking at this, like, what is this kid doing? Sure enough, I got a red card. Had a feeling I had to get off the field. But that walk was one of the longest walks of my life because I could sense, I can hear the people laughing and the kind of the judgment. And I felt, I felt stupid. Honestly, if that's the word that I want to use, I was embarrassed. The team ended up losing. They had to put a field player in, and you can tell that at the end of the game, people were looking at me kind of funny, and I was disappointed. I went home, I was crying, and I told my mom, I don't want to go back. Like, soccer's not for me. Clearly, it's not for me. My mom said, well, we already paid for the month. You're going back. So yeah, I kind of stuck with it from there at 12, 13 years old, and kind of developed from there.
Well, Calero, we know him from his famous hats or famous, I don't say bandanas, but his style there. And you watched a lot of Liga MX growing up.
Yes. So at that point, I took it personal, right? I wanted to not look stupid again. I started watching as much soccer as I could. My mom said, hey, well, there's soccer on TV. Look what they do. Look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, and try to do it that way. It sounded stupid, but it was the best advice I've ever had. Watch the games. Be a student of the game. I became obsessed with watching games. So during that time with Osvaldo Sanchez, El Conejo Perez, Calero, I started watching their mannerisms, and I picked up a lot of my style at a young age was this Mexican extravagant style of the switches and the flying across the goal and yelling and barking at your defense. I took it to the extreme because that's what I kind of narrowed myself into that league. And I picked up a lot of it, and I was able to improve. I watched as much games as I could. I remember at the time the game started at 1 p.m. on Saturday. They ended at 9 p.m. So Saturday was my whole day of watching soccer. Random Toluca versus Santos games. I was watching all of it. And like I said, it became an obsession. I did start to get better. The training and the games, I started to develop my game, and I improved really quickly because I did have the athletic ability. It was just the knowledge and all that I didn't have whatsoever.
Piecing it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you went from Chivas USA. What happened after that?
So my junior year of high school, Chivas USA, the Chivas USA folded. They closed down their academy, and I didn't have a club at the time. I didn't have the means to kind of drive out to like LA Galaxy or anything like that. I didn't really even have the opportunity. So I decided to stay with high school soccer. My junior and senior year, didn't play academy or club. And I was fortunate enough to be at a game where there was another top level player being scouted. And I was found pretty much by coincidence or accidentally. I was invited to go up to Davis solely because they were scouting a different player. They didn't really come to see me.
But sometimes you need that little bit of luck.
Yeah, it was my last game. It was a playoff. My senior year, it was at Cal Lutheran. They were scouting this player. He was like a 6'4", 9 target forward. He ended up going to the Army or something like that. But yeah, I did well during that game. And Dwayne at UC Davis kind of invited me up, and I went to an ID camp, and it kind of went from there.
That was the funny part is I was working that ID camp, and that was the first time I was ever introduced to Armando Quezada. I don't think in that entire weekend you conceded a goal.
Yes, that is correct.
And I remember correct. Jason Hoteling, who I know and love, and is our goalkeeper coach at Davis. He was coming up to Chris Schultz and I at the time and saying, guys, we got this guy coming in next season. You guys are on notice. And I think I was a little bit like, okay, you're just exaggerating. It's just a young guy coming to this camp. But then I went to actually watch you again on Sunday, and just your mannerisms, your personality, your shot stopping ability. It was all this stuff that I started saying, oh boy, I might be in trouble here. And then that entire off season, Jay would have in sessions would tell Chris and I, that's not going to fly. You guys need to work on that save or work on that parry or work on that cross taking or your distribution, because we got a guy coming in next season, Armando, who's good at all that. So just be ready. So I don't know if you came in, you were a little bit hated. I don't know if you felt it, but
yeah, I was like, dude, what's going on here? I tried to be a little social and be a good teammate and stuff, but as I came in, especially with the older guys, you and Chris, I did feel some animosity, and I was like, what have I done? Are they just trying to be mean on me? I thought you guys were just picking on me, but I was like, I guess. I don't know. What did I do?
Yeah, it was funny, but you don't play at the beginning of your time there. I think I end up getting injured against Cal State Fullerton. It was my senior year. It was a through ball. I came out to clear it. The guy 2
similar
foot
to what happened in this at the LFC final.
Yes, very similar. A little less on the line, but I come out. Guy gets a red card tackle on me, but then you end up jumping in. So what was the mindset like going into that game, but also to kind of like, okay, I'm going to be the number one for a few games here?
That I remember that freshman year. Looking back at it, I was not ready. I was not prepared. That first year or two was a big learning experience. It was eye-opening, right? Because that was where I started to develop a little bit more. I had a lot of that Mexican style of shot stopping and I guess communication, if that means like barking out orders, which is not what I think is ideal. But I got a lot of stuff from you early, understanding like, okay, I have to be able to lace a ball 40 yards and put it on somebody's chest. I'd never been able to do stuff like that ever. Goal kicks, I was just trying to kick it as far as I could, but coming in and seeing you side volley, I didn't know how to do a side volley coming into college. I got that from you. And then being able to play on the left and the right and playing out of the back, that was like so foreign to me at the time. And I said, okay, well, I humbled myself. My freshman and sophomore year, I was able to say, you know what, I deserve this. Let's sit back. Let's watch. I learned a lot from you. You ended up being Big West Keeper of the Year. And I said, well, I'm sitting behind that. Like I can't beat that. So yeah, I did appreciate that time. I appreciated you because even after the first few months, I think you brought me in like under your wing and kind of taught me the ways. So yeah, I was able to develop a lot freshman and sophomore year because of what I was able to watch from the sidelines and what you were doing.
Yeah, I think so. Do you have any advice for the young kids out there who may be sitting behind someone who is better or sitting in a situation where, for example, I actually got a quick question here from a fan on YouTube.
Okay.
Sefer Ozdemir. Sorry if I butchered your name there, but he put, would you rather be a second choice but in a professional environment where you could learn a lot of things, or be the first choice no matter, even if the level is not so high? So tailoring that question to the topic that we're on, do you feel like being a number 2 at Davis and kind of learning the things that we were trying to help you with was more beneficial for you, or did it ever cross your mind that at some point, I'm not the number 1 here. Let me get out of here. Let me go to a different school that may not be of the level that I'm trying to aspire to, but I will be the starter.
Gosh, that's a very complicated answer. I would answer it personally. To me, it was extremely beneficial for me, mentally and physically. On the mental side, it brought me down a notch. It humbled myself. It made me realize that there's so much more to learn and that you can still pick things up from the sideline. And how often do you hear somebody say, oh, I should be starting. I should be this. I should be that. You play that game in your head. You're so worried about what you should be and what this idea that you paint yourself of, I should be the starter.
Entitlement, no. But you feel like, I think one thing you said too recently was, to go on this topic, is I was working my butt off. I felt like I was entitled to an opportunity because I've been putting in the work. So like you're saying, there are maybe some kids in the college scene or even in high school who feel like I'm putting in the work and I should be deserving of an opportunity.
That was eye-opening to me because early in my career, I think I've talked about this in the past, is that I was working my butt off. Honestly, I was going to the gym twice a day, eating properly, sleeping right, doing all the things that I should be doing at a high level. And I was still not finding that success and finding the contracts and being able to be a starter and all that. And it was very frustrating. It was toxic, right? Because I was just doing those things because I thought in doing that I would have immediate recognition and get that immediate reward. But life doesn't work like that. There's so many factors. Depends what team you're on. Does the team need a goalkeeper? Are you going to be third in line, second in line? It just depends, right? There's so many factors that determine if you're going to be the starter or not just only if you're good enough or you work hard enough. There's a lot of factors. You got to be patient. You got to understand the circumstances. And don't get me wrong, the game is the best teacher. So if you're able to play, I mean, who am I to say don't take the games, right? And nobody's not going to do that because the games themselves teach you a lot. And if you're able to learn from them and learn from your mistakes and learn from your positive actions, then you develop a lot faster. So if I were to give an answer, yes, take the games because the games are the best teacher. But 1B would be if you could go join a higher level institution, a good club where you know you're going to be coached right, you have a good goalkeeping coach, and as a 2, you can develop your mental side, preparation, without having to be in the fire of the games. Sometimes that's better because then it builds a little fire in your belly of like, okay, once the opportunity comes about, you're going to be prepared. You're in a better position to be successful on that way. So it just kind of depends, right? Every circumstance is different, but.
So you do get moments when you become the number 1 at Davis. What was that like?
It was awesome. It was the first time in several years where I said, I know I'm going to be able to play the next game. It gives you that sense of, I think Abraham talks about it rhythm, and you build momentum and you build one performance off another. And that's a real thing. So
I think what can happen sometimes for players is they get the opportunity and then all of a sudden something switches in their head and they say, okay, now I have to do this differently. I have to do this differently. So not even on the field, but their preparation. So for you, did you feel like when the opportunity did come and you got those string of games that you had already built a process that was fine-tuned, or did you get that and say, okay, now I got to change everything up?
I guess a little bit of both. I was reminding myself of that. Hey, don't try to do too much. This is your opportunity. This is everything you've worked for over the last few years. Enjoy it. So it was a constant battle of some games saying, hey, maybe I was overthinking too much, or I didn't prepare well enough for the game. And I personally feel I felt comfortable my junior and senior year. I felt comfortable because I was happy with the opportunity. I knew I was going to get the games. I was excited about the games. I love the post-match, the pre-match, the warm-ups, just kind of battling in and out competition. Everybody's competitive around here. So I kind of fed off that.
You were super intense, though. I remember before games, you went into a zone that I didn't know if Armando was still in there. So what is that from watching the Liga MX games? Is that kind of how they got into a zone and you say, I'm going to copy that entire attitude?
Yeah, that intensity. Watching Osvaldo Sanchez just bark out his orders and cussing his defense out and all that. I thought that was the only way, right? The only way to get into that zone. And that was my zone. I felt comfortable there. I felt the intensity and giving that seriousness to that was needed at the time, like a pre-match, helped me focus mentally for the games. Now I kind of shied away a little bit from that because I thought at times I was too serious. I wasn't having as much communication as I should with maybe the guys in the locker room before the match and discussing stuff. I was very isolated at the time and kind of getting myself mentally ready. I mean, it worked out for me, but things that now I have changed a little bit to maybe have better performances.
Any regrets from your time in Davis? From the playing side, that's any moments that you felt, man, my preparation, I could have done this better, which could have yielded better results?
Again, it always goes back to my junior and senior year. I could have developed more. I could have worked more on my distribution, just aspects of the game. Going back to it was like, now I feel like my abilities are way better because I've developed that over time. But regrets, I wouldn't say regrets. I did work my butt off to be in the position I was. I thought I performed well. I had some really good games. We made runs at playoff. So regrets, not necessarily, but going back to being critical, I go back to I could have done more. I could have done this. Not in a negative way, but puts that added pressure to do that now. So it kind of motivates me now because, 5 or 6 years ago, that kind of flies by. So we're in the position now where I can change things now and improve now.
That's a good point, though. I think a lot of times we find out things a little too late in the process. Going into Davis, for me, I had a skill set that I felt that I was good at. I was a good shot stopper. I was good with my feet, good communicator. And I felt like those were the staples of my game, things that I could kind of create separation with other people. And then you kind of get into in Davis, like you said, they went to recruit a 6'4'9". So we had at my freshman year, we had two center backs, Ethan Shawley and Lance Patterson, who were both 6'4". And the first few games that I played, I tried to come out for some crosses. The goalkeeper coach and head coach pulled me aside and said, "Look, that may be something that you want to try and do for this team, but we have the Twin Towers there, so those guys can take care of all that stuff. Hold your line, do what you're good at, reaction saves, and let's move on from there." So I said, okay, not that they neutralize me in that sense, but I think if I have any regrets or if I can look back on anything and how I try to communicate to young goalkeepers is the style that your team plays, that's all you need to work on. And it goes to your point of maybe I could have done a little bit more to develop. And I feel like there are some players that come out of college and they only fit a specific system, a specific style. And we see some teams in the USL, for example, what I'm familiar with this year, they play long. So you have a goalkeeper who's very, very good at shot stopping, very good at probably punting the ball 60, 70 yards and can hit a target. But when they get pressed, they may not be that good. So I think to avoid having regret really is look at your game now and then look at the top pros that you see.
Everybody knows what they're not good at. Everybody knows it.
You think?
No. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Everyone's self-aware enough?
Self-aware enough to know this is my weakness. Is it crossing? Is it, again, distribution, which is the biggest one for goalkeepers now.
But what if your team, you're not seeing, whether it's the league that you're in, the high school league that you're in, or the college league that you're in, you're not seeing certain things that would extract or expose your weaknesses? Or you think a lot of people are aware enough in that?
I guess you're right. No, I mean, yeah, probably not. Yeah, I hear that a lot though. Saying, "Oh, we don't play to my style. We don't play to my strengths. I'm good with my feet, but they're asking me to do this, that, and whatever." Those are excuses, right? As you get to higher and higher levels, you are contracted to. You get paid to do exactly what the coach is asking you to do to be able to win games, right? That's like it doesn't get more complicated than that.
It's black and white.
Black and white. So if you're sitting there saying, "Well, they're not playing to my style," okay, who are you, right? Like, good luck with that. Try to have that mentality at higher levels. Once you get to MLS, USL clubs, and you walk in with that mentality, they have to cater to my strengths. You as a goalkeeper, you have to have a diverse toolbox to be serviceable for teams. It's a resume. As you come in, I talk about a toolbox. You have the distribution, the crossing, game management, all that. As part of your game, you're going to be serviceable. You're going to be able to sign more contract. Coach is going to like you more because you're more available to what their philosophies are. Yeah. So a lot of people get caught up in I, this, that. Give yourself a second and think about how this is going to work out for you in your career and how you're going to be serviceable for clubs and coaches and have a long career that way.
That's a great point. Let's move to finishing up college. Mm-hmm. And something that I think from the self-awareness side for you was it was tough to kind of recognize, whoa, I'm not getting the offers. I'm not getting invited to the combine, a college
draft, no combine, no calls, nothing. And it was hard at the time, right? Hard in the sense that I wanted to feel like people were going to call. I wanted to feel that the teams were going to reach out, but nobody did. And sure enough, they shouldn't have, because I didn't have the best highlight tape. I don't have the biggest frame. I'm not going to stand out visually. So all the stuff that happened during that time should have happened to me. During the time, I was making excuses and feeling bad for myself. Oh, I should have gone to the combine. You look on Instagram and you see all these other players that you've played against in Stanford, Santa Barbara. Be like, oh, I feel better than him. I should have been called. You build this circle of BS, and you start making excuses. And a lot of players make it to that point and get caught there and then retire. They get caught up until I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have been called, and aren't able to move past those moments in their life. And I feel proud that I was able to get through that. I was able to kind of look at the mirror and be like, I don't deserve any of these opportunities. I have to go find it the hard way, build my way up, get some games here and there, and build a career out of it, which is what I've been able to do now. I haven't been able to play much, but I'm very proud of the effort and the amount of time I've put in to get to where I am now, which is not a lot, but I'm proud of it. And now moving forward, I don't really look back too much. I'm focused on what's next. It's always been what's next in my career.
Well, the hard way is an understatement. You finish up Davis. Obviously, you're trying to tap into your network of coaches as you're trying to realize I have to do this my way or do it in a way where I'm the one who's making these phone calls. I don't really have
force
an agent.
my way. I'm gonna force my way into the game because
Yeah.
they're not gonna call me. They didn't.
Yeah, and I remember you were kind of just going from trial to trial to trial, and there was one that we ended up going to in Ventura. And I actually have a video that I want to show you.
Let's see it.
I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but with all my guests now, I kind of want to surprise you.
This cannot be good, dude. This cannot be good. Oh,
we are at the combine. We're in the car right now, just waiting for the check-in. Everything feels good. I'm a little nervous. I'm a nervous father today. Armando.
What's up, guys?
And
look at
just
that.
Want to
That's
get a little
terrible.
interview with Armando. Armando, how are you feeling? How was the week of practice?
So
like,
feeling great. Omar got me ready for this combine, and I couldn't be more prepared. I'm super excited, and I feel like we're gonna have a good day.
We'll check back in. I'll have some highlights from the day, and here we go.
Okay, so that was probably one of 15 trials?
Easily, yeah. It was one of them. I remember that one went really bad. Not really bad, but I just did not look good. I was focused. There was a few other goalkeepers there that I played in college with, and I would say they were better than me for sure at the time. Yeah, that trial did not go well. I did not perform well.
It's tough though, because when you are coming from a Division I school, there is a little bit of not entitlement, but you're not a scrub. You obviously have to showcase well enough to be considered by a Division I school. So you were of the level. And how difficult is it to go to these and see coaches maybe not taking it as seriously, or the assistant coaches are coming, or the head coach is not really even watching, they're on their phone. So from an ego perspective, how did that sit with you?
Tough. Again, you go to this, you spend, even there, Ventura was far from it. It was a 2-hour drive. If I had to pay for the trial. You invest all this emotion and money and time, and you show up, not to this trial because I thought they did well in evaluating players, but I did go to many others where they said there was going to be a team representative, but ends up being the third assistant coach who's there to just see one player and is on their phone half the time. So yeah, it gets frustrating as a player, and lots of us have these frustrations, especially the guys that are kind of fighting their way through and don't get the calls and don't get the recruitment. You show up to these opportunities and they're not what you think they are. They're not looking to sign you. They're there to see a different player. And you feel like you're wasting your time, and there's a lot of disappointment, but it sucks to suck, I guess. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to go home and cry about it, and then your career is over. Because to be able to sign for a team, then I have to wake up the next day and be like, where's my new opportunity coming from? Because nobody is calling. So at that point, either you give up on your goal, your dream, or you wake back up the next day and find a different camp or a different place where you can go find this opportunity, and hopefully it's a better one. And there's this constant process of finding opportunities and finding good ones. There's going to be bad ones out there. Okay, what's new? Like, that's with anything in life, right? So yeah, it was that constant battle of finding the best opportunity. There wasn't many doors, but there were some there, and I had to make sure that I at least knocked on those doors.
Yeah, I think one that sits with me and hurts me to even discuss it, the Las Vegas one. Hey man, I'm going to Las Vegas. One of the coaches called me from Las Vegas Lights.
Yeah, this was so bad, dude.
They told me to come to training and just kind of take people through what happened there.
Gosh, dude, you're bringing back so many memories that I've already deleted from my mind. But long story short, right? I had reached out to Vegas in the past when I graduated college. I sent a lot of USL teams and my resume, highlight tape. They was one of the teams that reached out and said, hey, why don't you come out for a training session? We're looking to bring in a keeper. It would be second or third, but we have a roster opportunity for you. Said, okay, when is that? We need one by tomorrow. Like, you need to come. Can you make it tomorrow? I said, yeah, I'll be there. Of course. I was excited. The opportunity, which meant training session was at 8:00, which means coming out of LA, I had to wake up, I had to leave the house at 4 a.m. So went to sleep early, woke up, 3.5 hour drive to training. Get there maybe 30 minutes before training even starts. I said, okay, I'm here on time. We're good. I'm getting myself mentally focused in the parking lot. As I'm walking up to the field, one of the coaches stops me and says, who are you? And I said, Armando Quezada, I'm here for a trial. He's like, oh, yeah, you're not going to be able to train today. And I was like really confused. I said, I got an email. I said, he wasn't the head coach. So I said, can I speak to the head coach? And at the time it was Chelis. I'm sure a few people have recognized him. He's a character, all right. But yeah, sure enough, I was shocked to know that he said, yeah, we're not gonna, you can't train today. Just out of left field, right? It was very like, I was so confused at the moment. I said, I got, you guys reached out to me. It's like, yeah, we're not looking to bring anybody in. I thought he was messing with me, man. I was like, is this a serious conversation? Like, I thought he was joking, but sure enough, it was like, he didn't allow me to train. He said, you're good. Like we don't have an opportunity for you here. So I made that drive out there for nothing. I don't know if it was, they were like, they've done that to other players or they changed their mind or I think they had already brought somebody else in that day and then they didn't even bother to text me, say, hey, don't bother coming or whatever. Right. So yeah, I just sat there and said, well, there's no opportunity here, I guess.
That wasn't even at the beginning of the journey too. If that's the first one, then maybe you say, okay, hopefully they're not like this, but you at least have some hunger and say, I'm going to keep showing up. But if that was like what, 10 trials in already. Now you feel like there's a spark, there's an opportunity here, and then that happens to you. And I'm sure it takes you to a dark place. So I don't want you to relive that. But the darkest one that I remember was your time in Mexico. And I think one thing that you may have said, you had a famous interview now with Matt Sheldon when you guys had a little bit of an off-season training session. And you said, you go to these opportunities and a lot of times you think that it's just going to be soccer related. Like I'm here and I'm better than that goalkeeper, or I'm showcasing myself enough to be the number one. And then you kind of go to Mexico and different places and you start kind of realizing, okay, it's a little bit deeper than that. There's a little bit more than you have to be better than these guys.
Soccer, professional soccer is a business, and professional sports are a business. And you start to learn that as you leave the college game and you start to get these professional opportunities. You start to realize that like we talked about, there's so many factors that go into it. People talk about it all the time: favoritism, politics, like, so they cry me a river. Like you always have that one teammate. You always have these players that are no longer playing talking about, well, the coach didn't like me, or I should have played, I was so much better, this, that, whatever. Every excuse in the book, right? But you also got to keep in mind there's 100 billion teams on this planet. Maybe it didn't work out for you. You were treated unfairly at a certain club. There's so many more opportunities to go find. If you're good enough, somebody's going to give you that opportunity, right? So yeah, it frustrates me to hear people kind of make those excuses, because I made those excuses at the time. I thought I was good enough and I wasn't getting the recognition or the opportunities. So I just kept looking. Like, that's it. It's not that complicated. There's so many teams that would love to have you if you're good enough. Again, it comes down to many factors: talents, politics, favoritism. Does the coach like you? Do they even need a goalkeeper? Some teams already have those 3 keepers. Like, I don't know. It just depends.
Yeah. With all of us too, it's difficult when you start looking at your friends, and it's not envy, but you start saying like, man, I've been spinning my wheels now for about a year, almost 2 years, not getting the opportunities that I want. I'm not starting the career that I want outside of soccer either. There isn't really much of a stable job because you're traveling all the time, and any opportunity you're getting in your car, getting on a flight and going, all the money that you would be making, maybe doing private lessons and stuff, is being used to fund these trips. So at what point did you say, man, like I'm seeing my friends, they're having good careers, they're already ahead of me a year or two now. At what point did you say, you know what, I'm going to hang up the boots, I'm going to just call it, I'm going to probably go home and work on some business stuff? Like, was there at any point in that?
Throughout that process early in Mexico, yes, there was many times where I said, yeah, this is not working out. It's not for me. I was trying to be realistic. I said, maybe I'm being delusional. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe this isn't for me. You start thinking of destiny as like, is this even meant for me? So those questions do creep in. There was a lot of conversations that I had with my family saying, I'm coming home. I want to come help. At the time, my family needed help around with business stuff and all that. And I said, I'm coming home. I'm done with this, which is what I did. I left Mexico. I didn't really get any traction, no opportunities, no contracts over a year and a half, and essentially started from zero. The moment I landed, I said, what am I going to do now? What is my next step? And I would lose sleep over it because there's not a lot you can do. I mean, keep training and keep networking and emailing and reaching out. And it's tough at times, always trying to have to sell yourself and always you have to put in the effort.
Yeah.
But that's life.
Yeah. Well, San Antonio calls luckily gives you a little bit of an exhale.
Yes.
In your passionate run to get a contract. So I remember where I was, 24-hour fitness. You texted me and said, dude, I got some news. I'm going to call you. Okay, I'm like, oh boy, this guy's been running around for years. I'm hoping that something came. But at the time, the way things you were sharing with me, the stories you were telling me, I was like, I wasn't really too, it wasn't much on the horizon, I think. And then you said, hey man, I'm signing to San Antonio. They're going to announce it pretty soon here. And I was like, no freaking way. I was on the treadmill. I stopped completely. I was like, oh my God. Whoa.
Yeah, I was actually there before I even broke the news to you, because at this point I was like, I'm going to stop telling people where I'm going, what my trials are, because what ends up happening is this. I go to the trial, something goes wrong. Either I'm not allowed to train, they don't like me, they kick me out. I don't know where I'm going to, like, all these things happen, right? And then on top of that happening, I get a text from everybody that I told about the trial. Hey, how'd it go? Or how's that opportunity? Or let me know how that, like, I hated that. I hated having to explain to my mom, my friend, my sister, saying, hey, I didn't really get a chance, or they didn't let me train, or this, that, what happened. So I started to be a lot to myself. I didn't really want to break news to anybody, or more private, because then mentally it helped me, because then I don't have to give an explanation to everybody of how this went wrong, or not that I was ashamed of it, but mentally I needed to really focus on myself and give myself the best chance. So with San Antonio, I was there. It was a mid-season. It was in the middle of like July, I believe, when they called me in for an opportunity. I showed well, and yeah, I signed the contract, and I was able to come in and kind of work my way up to be a number 2 there. And that was my first contract.
One thing I love that you did say in that Shelly interview was that when the contract was sitting in front of me, a lot of thoughts come into your mind, and you start thinking, wow, all that work, everything that I've done is coming to fruition in this moment as I sign this paper. But I think for you were saying, while I was signing that, and it was a big moment for me in my career, I also had this epiphany that signing this paper doesn't make me a professional athlete. It's that process and that grind and that grit that I've had to show myself. Show up for yourself every single day. And that is what makes you a professional athlete. So again, for everyone listening, young kids out there, for you, can you reflect on that moment? Because it was a very raw moment in that interview when you said it. And I was thinking, man, what self-awareness, but also too good understanding of, you can sign a paper for any club and nothing ever happens, but it's about how you and your personal experience in those moments. So share with me that.
Yes, there's this big obsession, and I understand where it's from. I mean, you see it on Instagram and YouTube, these like clickbait, captions. Do this to sign your first professional contract. Do this if you want to be a pro. And there's this obsession with this glamorous life of being a professional football player and the status of it, right? At a young age, you fall in love with the status that you see watching the Premier League and hearing about how much money these players make and the cars they drive and all that. I think lots of us, even including myself, fall in love with the status, but then don't realize there's so much more to get to that point, and the things that you can get out of the game without having to reach those high levels. A lot of life lessons and things that you can develop as a person that the sport can teach you, that you can apply to all aspects of your life. Being more specific to what we're talking about here, having that contract in front of me was the first time where I had a lot of stuff going through my mind, a lot of flashbacks of like Pro GK and when we started that the first few months and all the trials, and it all kind of was this huge, like this movie was playing in my head right before I signed the contract, and said, well, now what, right? I didn't feel fulfilled. Like I didn't feel when I signed the contract, and I said, I signed my contract, but I wasn't genuinely excited. Not that I wasn't excited, but it wasn't the end all be all at that point anymore. Like it was a year and a half ago. I said, if I just sign the contract, I can retire happily. Like I just want to be able to sign the contract and say I was a pro. When I signed the contract, I was like, okay, well, what's next? That was always in my head at that time. What's next now? I felt that I hit a point mentally where now I was really focused on how to be a good teammate, how to prepare for games, how to treat my body right, sleep right, eat right. I had developed all those things at that time And then signing the contract was it just made sense at the time. I use the word the phrase makes sense. A lot of stuff was like, okay, now what's next in my process? Which is, I said, okay, well, I signed the contract. Now it's be able to play in a game. And that was my goal. I said, what do I have to do to play in a game? And it's going to be a lot of factors. Get better, have the opportunity. Something needs to happen for that to come up. And opportunities are different for everybody.
Yeah. I think it's also very difficult when you are with the team, you sign with them. It can be a little naive in saying, okay, they want me for next season too. They want to bring me back, and it's okay. I'll take on that second role again. No big deal for me. The coaches like me. The players like me. I've built relationships here. I could see myself living in San Antonio. And then I think if I remember correctly, that off season, no phone calls came.
Yeah, they didn't, I guess, essentially want me back if it want to be flat out. That was the truth. I don't know why. I mean, specifically, maybe I wasn't good enough. Possibly, right? It was my first year. I thought I showed well in training. I was a good teammate. I had a good mentality. I never had issues in terms of being a professional. I pride myself in that. I'm always there early, leave late. So in terms of that, I don't think it was that. I think I was just maybe not good enough. I had more to develop, and that's it.
It's tough. You create narratives sometimes. It's not a breakup, but you almost realize, you start recognizing, whoa, what did I do wrong? Did I say something? Microanalyze a lot of things. So I know that's tough, but you kept going, bro.
And you should, though. You should. I told you, you're your biggest critic. You should go back there and really analyze, even if it's not something that you did bad. Like, you can. I do this all the time, even currently. Like, you trick yourself into saying that's the reason why you did not perform X, like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Like, you did not perform well. Now you have something to work on. Now you have something to strive for perfection. Now you could be like, I have to be good all 5 days. I can't have 4 good training sessions and then 1 bad one. Pros talk about consistency all the time. That is what consistent is about. Being good all the time. Anybody can be great one day. Anybody can have a really good training session or a really good week. Can you have a really good month? Can you have a really good year?
Yeah.
Stringing it all together, that is the end game. Like, you spend your whole life doing that.
So San Antonio doesn't renew the contract. Then Greenville is a situation where you go out there, something new, and I don't know how that...
South Carolina.
How did that situation and opportunity come?
Yes. After San Antonio, again, proactive. I've done this before. Every offseason, I start reaching out to teams, personally email all the coaching staff. Greenville, USL League One, it was its first year in existence. So I said, brand new team. They don't have any goalkeepers. Everybody in this league will be signed as a new player. So I saw that as an opportunity. I said, League One should be my goal right now. Would probably give me the best chance to play. And I reached out to them. The goalkeeper coach there had actually seen me from Pro GK. So when I reached out to them, he said, yeah, I've seen some of the videos. I would love to see you in person and bring you out on trial. And it went well. I flew out across to South Carolina. I just brought a few things because I thought I was only going to be there for a few weeks, but I ended up being there for 9 months. Signed for the team and learned a lot from there. And I wasn't able to play, but I enjoyed the South. I met a lot of friends and developed again as a goalkeeper. I picked up a lot from that goalkeeping coach. That is a big theme for me. There's a lot of places where there's different styles of coaching and different goalkeeping and different ways to go about it. He was very specific about his mannerisms and where hands should be in set positions and stuff that I had never been challenged to improve on. So again, took it as another opportunity to add to my toolbox of different way of setting for shots and handling and decision making, and brought that in.
That's a good point. I think you go through these trials and it can be easy you're spinning your wheels. I'm just showing up and hopefully they like the way I play. Hopefully they give me an opportunity. But if you're there for a week, for 2 weeks, one thing I would encourage anyone who's going through trials is, like you're saying, try to absorb as much as you can from the goalkeeper coach. See what are they trying to exert from me? What are they trying to pull from my game to make my case a little bit stronger to the head coach? Take that advice. And then you look at the number 1, the number 2, and if there's a number 3 there, why is each goalkeeper in the position that they're in? All of those questions. And like you're saying, little 1%, 2%, 3% added to every piece of your toolbox. And I think that is where you start to use these opportunities, not so much as, oh man, I'm traveling here and there. It's more so I picked up a lot in my time there, and it sounds like Greenville was that for you.
Yes, that started in San Antonio. So when I showed up my first week at San Antonio, I remember Matt. I don't know if you remember Matt. He played in USL for a long time, the guy with the beard, long beard.
Yes.
like I wouldn't say shocked, but it was my first week at training, and I came in and he was hitting balls off his left, his right, perfectly, lacing balls, side volleys, didn't drop a ball all training session, and I was like, oh, like that is the standard. And I didn't have that standard. I would drop maybe I was personally okay with dropping a few, mishandling a few balls, or like shanking a foot on my left, like shanking a ball with my left. Like that was my standard. And I convinced myself that was a good standard. I was like, oh, I shanked the ball here or I dropped the ball here, but I'm still good. Like I'll pull it off in a game. That was my mentality at the time. But then coming into it and see it physically, like having him lace a ball 60 yards with his left foot, I was like, I can't do that consistently. So there's my challenge. So I did a lot of that after the games. I would stay after and lace balls with my left, my right. I would 100 balls with my left, 100 balls with my right, intermediate, long balls. So I started to pick off things that I said, okay, I'm going to look at this goalkeeper and see what can I not do that he's doing. I picked it off from Matt, his distribution. I had to match it or be better. And that takes time, takes reps. That's what I got from Matt. In Greenville, Dallas J. He ended up being goalkeeper of the year, right? So if anything I could do is sit there and look at it and be like, okay, what can I pick off from him? His game management, his communication with his teammates and stuff like that, that I was, as you're sitting back and saying, I should be playing all this BS, focus on like, what can you pick up from your teammate, from the number one, from the number three, if you're the second. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about who's your backup, who's the starter. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're at, my piece of advice, take what you can get from the people around. There's things that you might not like, or the styles that the way they're doing about it, but pick it up, because in 9 months time, in a year's time, you might be in a similar situation where the goalkeeper coach is going to ask you to do that. So if you've already developed that skill, it's going to give you a better chance to give a good impression and get yourself on the field, because that's at the end of the day what you need to do. Impress the coaching staff. They need to trust you as a goalkeeper, and that's going to give you the best opportunity to play. Do that consistently and be around enough top-notch goalkeepers, you're probably going to get a little bit better, which is what I've done with my career. I show up somewhere, I try to be a good teammate, and I pick up things off everybody. I don't care if you've played D3, D2, you're a pro, 10-year pro, 15-year pro. If you're 14 years old, there's a guy that I was here with LAFC for a little bit in preseason. He went to Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh.
Cabral.
How old is he?
I think he's 18 now.
18, Cabral. Yeah. Like there's things that he is almost 10 years younger than me. And I saw things, the way he was handling balls, taking volleys, and his approach on 1v1s and stuff. He's 10 years younger than me. And I was looking at it, I need to pick that up. I got it. Like, I like how he did that. I'm going to see if I can do it that way, and then add it to my toolbox. So it doesn't matter. You can pick off something off anybody. Good or bad.
It's an easy formula too. Just be productive with your time and the situation that you're in, versus, like you're saying, pointing fingers and saying, I'm not where I need to be because of this person, because of that person.
If there's one thing, right, that you can get from today, from my podcast, and I don't want to be preaching, but you are right where you should be. You are right where you should be. And what I mean by that is that if you're living in this world where I should be here and I should be this and I should be achieving this, that, you are right where you should be because of the actions that you have taken. Maybe it's your bad networking, or you don't have a really good agent, or you don't have an agent, or you didn't play academy. All those things have led to where you are now. So what do? Do you keep pondering of where you should be, or you accept in a positive way, I am right where I should be. So now what am I going to do about it to get better and achieve my goals?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. So picking up on the networking aspect, I think what was very, very intriguing to me was, how can I continue to use my network to help you, in a sense? And I remember this came out of the blue. And again, you could have quit a long time ago, and this opportunity maybe never would have came up because you had retired and I wouldn't have thought of you. But I'm in Armenia playing in the Pan-Armenian Games, and I get a call from Tiffany and Trevor, who are at Detroit City. But Trevor was the head of the LA Galaxy Academy when I was there. They give me a call and they say, hey, we're in a situation where we need a goalkeeper ASAP. Do you have anybody in mind? And I said, well, my buddy Armando, he's playing in Greenville, and I need to find a situation to maybe get him out of there. But I think he could be an option. Okay, please call him as soon as you can. So I call you and I was like, hey, this is a situation. I think they need a number 2, but someone who could potentially compete for a number 1. What's your situation like in Greenville? And you said, well, I got to work on a few things, but I would definitely be interested in that opportunity. One thing led to another. You end up getting on a flight. You go to Detroit, and you start your career there.
Yeah. I guess to be more specific there, like it was towards the end of the season here with Greenville. There was a handful of games left. And at the time, I had a lot of stuff going back home, right? I had some family stuff with my mother and health issues and all that. And I would say it was a really bad moment. It was a bad few weeks. I wasn't playing with Greenville. My family was not doing too well at home. Things were not really positive in my life. So hearing about this opportunity kind of gave me a little bit of a spark of hope of saying, okay, well, I'm sacrificing all this time away from my family and things aren't going right at home, but there's this opportunity that's come about. Like, I need a change of scenery. I was very fortunate, like I said, networking, to have you help me out with that. And yeah, I got on a flight and it was overnight. I kind of went to Detroit, and same thing as always. I showed up, try to show well and be a good teammate and be serviceable to them. And the goalkeeper coach at the time, I could pick up right away. I could see like, okay, this is the technique he likes. He likes this, that, whatever, because it starts to be repetitive. You start to see a lot of patterns, and we all kind of study the game from not a single source, but there's only a handful of styles, especially here in the U.S. So it helped me adapt. Again, I felt comfortable. I said, okay, these are the things I need to do. Just show well. This is what they're looking for. This is the style that they want. So yeah, I showed out and it went well.
I became a big fan, obviously. I have a lot invested in you. So I was watching your first game that you finally got a call, and they put you in, and I was watching, and I remember I was going to Cal State LA. I was on the bench. We were preparing for the game, and I'm watching the live stream, and I would say like 60 minutes in, they call a penalty. And I remember going, oh my God, what are the odds that Armando's first game, he gets a penalty called against him?
I didn't foul, first of all. I didn't
yeah,
foul.
You didn't.
It was somebody else.
I'll try and put the highlights on there. But yeah, so in my head, I'm thinking.
I don't think I've told you this. I'll tell you this right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I've told you specifically to that. So we were playing Philadelphia Fury. I think it's the name of the team. So Philadelphia, they were at the time, this was Nisa's first year. Philadelphia was going to be part of that league coming into the fall. And I had a friend who I'd played with in San Antonio who was going to be the captain for the team. So he had already a strong hold on the team, and I felt he could have given a good recommendation for me to maybe bring me on trial. This is before the Detroit opportunity, before I had already signed the contract with Detroit. I reached out to my friend and said, hey, do you think you can talk to your coach? I would fly out to Philly. I'll pay my way there. Like, I just want an opportunity to join the team. My ex-teammate at the time, he said, okay, well, he's asking for a resume. Can you put it all together and send it to me? I already had it ready. Within 5 minutes, I said, here it is, send it to him. And then he said, wait, he's a little confused. It says that you're 6 foot. And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, well, he told me that you're not tall enough to be honest. Like he said, word for word, you are not tall enough to be on this team. He was looking for taller goalkeepers. I mean, that's really what it was. So I said, what? Like, they're not even going to bother looking at me? He said, no, they're looking for somebody with a bigger size, a bigger frame. And I kind of brushed it off at the time because I was so easy at brushing off opportunities. I felt like personally attacked. I was like, okay, well, I was going to pay my way out there and you don't even want to see me because I'm 6 foot. Sure enough, I signed for Detroit. Within 2 weeks, I'm playing against them. I'm playing against this coach who said, we don't even want to look at you because you're not tall enough for us. And I saved the PK. We win that game 1-0. And I go after the game, I go look at him and shake his hand. I look him dead in the eye. I said, you should have signed me.
How did he react?
He didn't. I remember at the time, I think he was a little bit angry at how the game turned out. He looked at me and he didn't really have a response. It was, that I remember shaking his hand and I said, you should have signed me. And honestly, thankfully he didn't, because that team folded about 2 weeks later. So yeah, it's funny how things work out and stuff. So for keepers that are self-conscious about their height, because I see a lot of that online on YouTube and comments and stuff, is 5'11" too, like if 5'11" too short, is 5'10" too short, 6 foot not tall enough. Like, it's just, I don't know. It depends on the coach. That's another factor, right? If the coach is just looking for a specific frame or specific size in a goalkeeper, you're going to have no chance, clearly, right? So move on. Go find somebody else that doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot. I hear that a lot. Am I tall enough to be a goalkeeper? Am I tall enough? I mean, Barthez won a World Cup at 5'9". There's plenty of goalkeepers that are not as tall and have had lots of success in the Premier League and World Cups and stuff like that. So there's your example. It can be done. Is it going to be harder? Probably. So figure it out.
It's like a microcosm of your career is, okay, they don't like this thing about me. I'm not going to dwell over it. I'm just going to find what I can offer and what I can bring to the table. And then we go from there. So,
but don't be stubborn too. There have been times in my career where I'm stubborn, where I don't feel like I need to change. Right? You don't want to become a different player, sell yourself somebody who you're not, right? You don't want to show up to a club or a game or a training session and try to be somebody you're not, right? You want to stick to your guns, stick to your strengths, be who you are, but be flexible. There's things that you can evolve about your game or go about it differently that I wish I maybe could have done earlier in my career. Would have been a lot better for me. So be firm, right? Have that confidence, have that idea of, you know who you are, you know what you bring to the table. And then be a little bit flexible around the edges to adapt to the team, because that's what pro sports is about. The coach signs you to do a job. Can you do it the way he's asking you to do it? Because that's the way he believes is going to win games. And that's it. And if you do that enough, you'll probably have a long career.
Amen. Well, Armando, I kind of want to leave you on, or the audience on, this question. And the reason why I have the podcast is just to see, you've experienced so much about life and your personality and the values that you have now through the sport, through the game of soccer. Now, obviously, maybe people don't know, but you have pretty successful business, and it's your family's restaurant, but now you've opened up multiple locations here in Southern California. And what do you think from your experiences and having all these trials and just everything that you've been beaten through and pushed through these past few years, what have you taken in terms of lessons into your business now?
I see a lot of metaphors. I see a lot of things that I've been able to kind of pull from my career, my failures and stuff that I've been able to learn, and perseverance and patience and attention to detail that I've been able to apply to the business side of my life, my personal life. But specifically is just being able to, one, be self-critical, be your biggest critic, right? For anything you do in all aspects. Because if you can break down every single little thing that you do on the smallest scale and on the biggest scale, then you will find ways to keep you busy and improve on yourself with whatever that is, like learning about business, learning about goalkeeping. Be critical, understand what you're good and what you're not good at, and then revolve your life around getting better at those things. And then all the outside noise and all the comments and what people are talking about, it gets real quiet in your head. It gets real quiet. And the only person you're listening to is in your head, because you're so busy catching up to the 10 things you need to work on that you don't have time to even listen to opinions or comments or anything. Like, dude, you're so busy. Because I always say that I'm so busy. Not because I have a crazy schedule, but I'm always just busy thinking, all right, what can I do better? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it just becomes this like vicious circle of chasing it.
Yeah.
And then good things happen. Good things happen eventually.
One thing I know about you is that no matter the situation, you always trying to find a solution. You're never going to say, okay, that's just how things are.
Some things don't have a solution. Move on. Go look for someone else.
Yeah.
Like, don't be stubborn. There's a lot of people that want things that I want to play for this club and I'm going to be 22 and I'm going to do this, that, and whatever. Like, you set all these expectations that, again, factors that are outside of the things that you can control. How about just focus again on the things that you need to improve on as a person, as a player, as anything, right? Whatever your role is, get really good at it. Be critical, develop, be nice to people, pick things off your teammates. There's so many things. Keep that voice in your head real quiet. You should be the only person you're listening to at all times. Develop that. Keep yourself busy with that, and things will work out. If anything, you develop skills. Right, you might not be able to put stuff on your resume this off season. Right, I'm not going to be able to say, "Hey, I signed for this team," but underneath, I can write, "I developed this, I developed that, I developed that." Like, I'm in a really good place right now, mentally, physically. Like, let's move forward, and then you pick that up and you go on to the next challenge, the next adversity, the next step, next chapter in your life, and you embrace it, and you become so busy with all these things in your head that you're like, oh, boom, 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 and you improve. really quickly.
I love that, man. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you here. Some really good points that I'm hoping that these young kids out there can really try to hone in on and apply. Any last words or anything you want to say?
Well, no, just thank you for having me, Zine. Pro GK has always been, I even have a tattoo. I mean, I don't really want to take my shirt off on camera, but I have a tattoo of Pro GK on my arm. Pro GK has meant a lot to me, not just the brand, but you, right? Because you are Pro GK. You have always been a person to want to help others, right? There's even what we're doing right now, right? You're trying to put some positive, valuable content online that these kids can pick up on, 2 or 3 things that I might have said, or even one thing that they can pick up off. And obviously you're extremely knowledgeable. You've been around the highest level of coaching at this point of your career, and you're barely getting started. So if there's anything I would say is that pay attention, stay close, look at this guy's content. He knows He knows what he's talking about. And when he doesn't, he still knows what he's talking about. So thank you. And I would say I appreciate you having me, and can't wait to be back at some point.
Yes, sir. I can't promise you guys that I will ever get a Pro GK tattoo, but if you ever want to see one, it's on his left bicep.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there somewhere.
Thank you, guys. And again, if you enjoy the show, go ahead and hit a review button. Hit the review button. Give it some stars if you like it, and just let us know what we could do better. And yeah, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for being here, Armando.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.